encourage people to become straight shooters. And how do you do that? You deactivate their fears. How do you do that? You're saying there's probably stuff you're holding back. You're scared if you tell me it's going to blow up the deal.
What if everything you thought you knew about negotiation was wrong? That the key to influence, persuasion, and success isn't logic, but emotion. Chris Voss spent 24 years as the FBI's lead hostage negotiator, facing life or death conversations.
When ChatGPT and the AI stuff, it started really hitting the business community hard about a year and a half ago. And I was confused. One of the guys on the panel said, this is being a great intern that'll give you a good first pass at the information. So I'm like, oh, okay. Then realized it's not going to be all the way there, but it's going to get you more than halfway there. If you look at it in that capacity, then it's very helpful.
Now, he teaches the world's top businesses how to win every deal. In this episode, he reveals the surprising power of tactical empathy, the secrets behind high-stakes negotiations, and why the best deals aren't won with aggression, but with understanding. This is the conversation that will change how you communicate forever.
AI is a copy of the knowledge as it exists in a given moment in time, and that freezes it. Great entrepreneurs, great business people begin to learn to their gut instinct, which is overriding their hopes and fears early on.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot not only supports the show, but they support entrepreneurs. That's why I'm such a huge fan of HubSpot. And I'm very grateful for HubSpot for supporting the show because they help entrepreneurs. And as a fellow entrepreneur, I know it takes a lot to grow your business, a lot of audience attracting, a lot of sales, a lot of marketing, a lot of lead scoring, a lot of channel management, a lot of content, a lot of long days, late nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of wishing there was an easier way, but there is. With Breeze, this is HubSpot's new collection of AI tools. It's easier than ever for marketers, for entrepreneurs to attract audiences, to increase leads, to score customers, and to close deals fast, which means pretty soon your company will have a lot to celebrate. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. People know your story. People kind of know you for Never Split the Difference. They know you for speaking about negotiation tactics in your past life and business and otherwise. I don't just want to rehash the same stuff that you've spoken about before. So right now in your world, what's exciting you? What's new? What's different?
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate that. St. Patrick's Day. We're doing a 2-day March. St. Patrick's Day is March. 2025, we're doing a two-day negotiation mastery summit in Louisville, Kentucky. This is the first big summit that we've done, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. First of all, Louisville, different. It's going to be fun to be in Louisville. Now, why did we pick Louisville? Well, actually, we're putting out a bourbon called The Difference, which is, we're going to screen it. We're going to give people an opportunity to taste it at Louisville. And while we're getting ready to put the bourbon together, I'm like, Louisville's a fun place. It's a little off the beaten path. If we're going to put together a monstrous learning event for mastery of negotiation, let's do it here. It's a cool place to go. So it's going to be at a fun place. Louisville is interesting. 2 days. What makes a difference between 2 days and 1 day? 2 day is because you need the intervening night to bake the information in your brain. You don't just get the same amount of learning if you go to a 1-day training. So we're going to immerse people the first day in the skills. It's going to bake in overnight. And when you come back the next day, you're going to be better, ready for day 2. We are doing a fair amount of prep. We've done a couple of webinars. We're going to do another one, the 7 baby steps to preparing for the quantum leap. We teach people you want to get a little bit better every day. And for a variety of reasons, that's a great approach to improvement. Just a little better every day. Because then if you have a bad day, if you're hungover, if your significant other yells at you, if your dog bites you, dog bites a mailman, and you lose that day, you haven't lost a lot. You can pick yourself back up, go again the next day. But now, what do you want to do if you want to do a quantum leap? What if you want to get 7 months of improvement in 2 days? You come to a 2-day immersion. So the Black Swan Group's 2-day negotiation mastery summit, it's either the 16th and the 17th or the 17th and 18th of March.
But you find it, I'll put it in the show notes too. So we'll have the links and everything in the show notes too.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And we got some additional benefits for attending the 2 days. So it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it. It's the first big one we've ever done, is why I'm really excited. It's the first time we've gone big, and we're going big this time.
First of all, I don't know what's I don't know what's harder, to kill a negotiation or to put on like an exceptionally well-planned 2-day super large event. That's also not so easy.
We're looking forward to it, yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to it too. Tell me, when you think about all the topics that you're going to talk about and discuss, I know that you speak now on business, empathy, AI. These are very hot topics. So what's the content that you're going to discuss that is something people are asking you about now that maybe 5 years ago, I'm assuming it has something to do with technology, something that people are asking about today that they weren't so concerned about when it comes to AI, negotiations, how it's going to impact it to any degree, that concept?
Yeah, well, there's two really interesting topics there, and I'm going to sort them out. I'm going to set AI off to the side for a second. In terms of learning, everybody wants what's new to start with. So there's a phrase, nobody steps in the same river twice. You're not the same person, and it's not the same river. So even if we were to go back over information that we said exactly the same way we did 5 years ago, which we don't, you're going to hear it differently. You're going to be a different person. If you've been studying this, you got smarter. If you haven't been studying this, in point of fact, you are smarter anyway. You've got more emotional intelligence than you did 5 years ago. You're going to hear stuff that we have never said before. Now, we're both using AI, and why will our live training always be ahead of AI? Because we're always innovating. Like, AI is a copy of the knowledge as it exists in a given moment in time, and that freezes it. It's a little bit the same reason why the U.S. beat the Russians to the moon when the Russians were the first ones in outer space. Once we got into the space race, the Russian strategy was to steal everything that we invented, which meant they were copying it, which meant it took a little while for them to steal it, to copy it, to think about it, to do it. And the amount of time it takes to copy existing information, the innovators continue to get better. We continue to get better. We're talking about stuff that we've never talked about before. We're talking about the different levels of labels. I did a special training for a high-end group in Arizona about a month ago. One of the Black Swan skills is the iMessage. I thought I'd laid it out to this group in detail. And the iMessage is just complicated enough. It's a high-level, advanced skill. So first, I got to make sure you got the basics, and even the people had the essentials. We workshopped iMessages for each one of their individual scenarios, and then they got it. So we're going to workshop iMessages. If you're using them, it's going to sound harsh. You're probably missing the mark. There wasn't anybody in the room that day that got it either exactly right or knew the exact moment to use an iMessage. What's an iMessage for? An iMessage is for somebody is killing you with scope creep. An iMessage is somebody who's chipping away at you, asking for extra things after the deal has been signed, which is, by the way, a technique that's taught by the lesser negotiation methodologies. It's like going to the tailor, getting a tailored suit, and after you've agreed on the suit and he's measuring you, looking at the tailor and saying, how many free ties do I get? Now, there are a bunch of people that are doing that. The problem with that is you got the free ties, but you don't realize that the tailor ain't never going to tailor another suit for you. Or when he does, he's not going to give you the same attention to detail. So businesses are getting caught up in this all the time. The remedy is the iMessage. And it's complicated surgical strike, and we're going to go into it in great depth so people really understand how to make it work and not make an enemy and not get killed being nickeled and dimed by the other side.
This brings me to an interesting thought. And I guess it's a very simple question, but obviously it's something that has to be answered. What part of negotiation do people have a hard time wrapping their minds around? Why do they still get it wrong? Even after spending time with you, consuming your podcast, what's the thing that doesn't click and why?
There are mainly three things. Now, this is going to be dependent upon you. Each individual that's listening to me now, you have a natural born conflict type. You either fight, flight, or make friends. Analyst, assertive, or accommodator. Now, if you're an assertive, if you're the Donald Trump type, and Donald Trump is a great poster child for the assertive negotiator. Like, you get what you want in the moment, and it's celebratory, and it's big wins, and then people stop dealing with you. You can't get them to pick up the phone. You can't get them to come to a meeting. You can't get them to sign the deal. They get gun shy. And Ivanka Trump once said of her father, look, my dad's just direct and honest, but everybody else thinks he's blunt and harsh. Well, unless you can unleash MAGA on somebody, you can't get away with being blunt and harsh. You got to have an army behind you. And most people don't have an army behind them. Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're dependent upon the goodwill of a long-term relationship. So as an assertive, what you don't get is what you think is your strength is going to work against you in the long run. You're too blunt. You're too harsh. I'm a natural born assertive. I got to find out a way to use a downward inflecting voice or smile or use self-effacing humor or using empathy before I assert. So that's one problem. People not knowing how to use empathy instead of assertion, it's in front of assertion. Now, the accommodator, the relationship-oriented person, opposite approach. People love dealing with you. Loving. But you make them wonder what you really want because you're afraid that you're being too assertive. You're scared of scaring them off. And you're making them read your mind and making them guess what you want. So you need to be more clear, and clarity is not violence. The people want to deal with you. They want to know what you want. They want to make a great deal with you long term. Don't make them guess. So keep your same mannerisms, very pleasant, always enjoyable to deal with, and come out and say what you want. Now, the third thing that people don't get, the analyst. You're making them guess too. You're keeping your cards very close to the vest. And you're analyzing 5,000 moves ahead. And you're coming off as cold and distant. People don't feel connected to you. And you can't imagine that's true because deep down inside, you got tons of people that love you and tons of people that you love. And you can't imagine if people see you as cold and distant, or often when they do, you feel it to your advantage, but you're driving business away and you're making people guess and you're not sharing information because you're afraid of getting caught off guard. So it's kind of three different things that are type dependent, and the world, as crazy as it sounds, and I know this sounds crazy, breaks up evenly into the three types, whether you're a New Yorker, you live in Beijing, you live in Beirut, you live in Bangkok. The world splits up evenly into thirds.
I would assume, because you probably see this quite a bit with some of the people that work with you, I would assume when people try, because most people are not negotiating in a hostage situation. Most people, especially people that listen to this show, are negotiating in a business context. And I'm curious if you see people who follow the Trumps of the world and they see how Trump negotiates at this stage in his life, and they're thinking, well, I'm just starting out. Let me try and mirror him, or let me try and copy him, even though he's at a much different stage in his life than you are just starting your business as a new entrepreneur. And I'm assuming that backfires 11 out of 10 times.
It backfires some, and be careful about assuming how he negotiates based on what you report in the media. I read The Art of the Deal way back when. It's the 1980s book. I was in New York at the time. Donald Trump's a New York guy. There's some my world and his world came very close, but never actually overlapped. We actually attended the same church. A minister that he was very close to was a good friend of mine. Donald Trump was gracious enough to support a fundraiser for the suicide hotline I volunteered at and held it in his apartment in Trump Tower. So that's all to say, I assess Donald Trump based on what I read in The Art of the Deal versus what you're seeing in the media. Because the media is going to give you a snapshot, distorted view. It's hard. It's like a picture, a photograph that's out of context. So Donald Trump, in The Art of the Deal, was a thoughtful guy and liked people who knew how to handle him. And based on respect. So what's the original question? If you're modeling Donald Trump, don't model what you see in the media. Read The Art of the Deal. He loves deference. He loves people who stand up for themselves in a very quiet way. Look at his relationship with his son-in-law, Jared. Jared is not a chair-kicking kind of guy. And it appears that they get along very well. So, just dig in a little bit deeper, whichever type you're looking at, and be careful about taking a one-dimensional or two-dimensional snapshot based on media reports. Now, the flip side is, of each of the types that I mentioned, your natural born strength, the thing that you like, your go-to, is essential and inadequate. So the part of Donald Trump's negotiation style as perceived that's essential is you got to let the other side know what you want. And he is clear about what he wants. So you can say it in a nice way. And my understanding is on a regular basis in one-on-one meetings, the meetings go great. And he can be charming and it could be a completely different conversation. So yes, be clear about what you want. You can just say it in a nice way.
One thing that I want to unpack two conflicting ideas. From a layman, they're conflicting ideas. And hear me out.
Of course.
So you don't like the idea win-win. That's one idea.
I don't like, all right. So I don't like people who use it as a tactic I don't like people who weaponize it.
Okay, I want to explain because I want to understand that. How do you weaponize win-win? Because the conflicting idea, so you just put out a book on empathy and understanding in business. And empathy and understanding, it seems like that would be like, the outcome would be like a win-win if you actually understand the person. So explain to me what the difference between being empathetic and having a mutually beneficial outcome from a deal versus weaponizing win-win.
Okay, weaponizing win-win to start with. Let's start there. And my experience on a regular basis, it's just there's darn near a one-to-one correlation. Like if you start talking to me and you say right away you want a win-win deal, if I hear in the first minute to 5, what you want is for you to win, period. You're trying to get me to do a lot for little or nothing. Now, win-win, when it came out, there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, of course. Yeah, let's collaborate. And then they would give up the store, give away the store, expecting the same in return. And so the cutthroat negotiators, like, okay, if I say this right away, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to get everything I want really fast. So it's become a tactic, very much like the word fair, that can be used to gain a psychological, transactional short-term slaughter of the other side. Like you put they used to call it create value versus claim value. The win-win guys are the create value. Let's create value together. And the claim value guys are the highly transactional, maximize the term, short term. Let me kill you. I got you over a barrel. I'm going to cut your throat. And you put a claim value guy up against a create value guy, and the claim value guy just wipes, or the attacker wipes the other guy out. The claim value wipes the creator out. So you could be highly vulnerable. Now, separately, you sort of asked me about what essentially is the spirit of win-win. And the crazy thing is, people think it's the monetary terms, when it's really, how involved was I in the transaction? How do I feel respected? Something other than the deal. It's nuts, but it's the emotional process. And so the deal might not be that great. The best deal might not be that great for you short term, but you felt a full participant in the process. It's one of the reasons why my Harvard brothers and sisters love this concept, the yesable proposition. Let me create a proposition that's so wonderful that all you got to do is say yes. So were I to lay that in front of you, you didn't feel involved at all. Like you didn't have a say in it. You're a slave in a gilded cage. It's still a cage. It doesn't matter that it's gilded. And so it's inherently unsatisfying for you. Now let's say we go back and we get into a process you're fully engaged every step of the way. And by deal terms, it's actually worse for you than the first one, which was the yesable proposition. You're going to prefer the one you were fully engaged in because you were there, you got involved, you were respected. What you said mattered, and you felt it was a joint outcome. So what am I driving at? Win-win is more of an emotional concept. Did you feel like you were treated with respect? Were you involved? Then you're going to feel like you won, separate and apart from what the actual deal terms are.
I just want to take a quick break and thank the HubSpot Podcast Network for supporting Success Story for the past few years. Now, the HubSpot Podcast Network has other incredible podcasts like My First Million. Now, if you are an entrepreneur or you are ready to turn your entrepreneurial dreams into millions, you have to listen to My First Million. It's a show that is revolutionizing business podcasting. It's hosted by Sam Parr, Sean Purry. This is a HubSpot Podcast Network original. It brings you unfiltered conversations with self-made millionaires who actually tell you how they did it. If you want to learn how Alex Hormozi built his fitness empire, or how Sofia Amoruso turned Nasty Girl into a fashion phenomenon, these aren't just success stories, they're the blueprints for your own journey to the top. Each episode breaks down the exact strategies and hidden opportunities that you can use right now. Don't just dream about your first million, learn how to make it. Listen to My First Million wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Taylor Brands. Now, here's a wild stat. 60% of Americans dream about starting their own business, but less than 20% actually take the plunge. Now, why is that? Let's face it, building a business feels overwhelming. But what if I told you there's a way to make it simple? This is where Taylor Brands comes in, your complete business building companion. They've turned the intimidating process of starting a business into something you can actually handle. If you need an LLC, done in minutes. If you're trying to protect your personal assets, they've got you covered. They'll hook you up with everything from legal documents to licenses to permits, even a personalized business plan. Plus, their business coaching program will guide you through your crucial first 100 days. And the best part is you get all the tools you need to build your brand, manage your invoices, handle your bookkeeping, basically everything you need to launch with confidence. And there's an exclusive deal for all Success Story podcast listeners. You get 35% off when you visit taylorbrands.com/podcast35. Don't let your business dreams stay dreams. Get started today with Taylor Brands. FreshBooks is supporting today's episode. And if you've ever wondered how successful entrepreneurs stay on top of their finances while growing their business, the answer is FreshBooks. The numbers don't lie. Over 30 million people have chosen FreshBooks, processing more than 60 billion in invoices and saving an incredible 192 hours every year on accounting tasks. Think about it. That's nearly 8 full days you could get back to focus on what really matters, growing your business. FreshBooks is more than just accounting software. It's your all-in-one financial command center. Create professional estimates, track time, automatically bill clients, and capture expenses on the go. Plus, it integrates seamlessly with over 100 business tools you already use, all backed by award-winning customer service. If you're ready to stop drowning in receipts and you're ready to stop chasing down payments, here's what I want you to do. Head over to freshbooks.com to start your 30-day free trial, no credit card required. And for all you Success Story listeners out there, I've got something special. Get an exclusive 60% off for 6 months when you visit freshbooks.com/pricing-offer. Transform your business with FreshBooks today. That's freshbooks.com/pricing-offer for 60% off. So if somebody does want to look for a partner, a business partner, a joint venture that will actually include you in part of the process before you go too far down the rabbit hole in that deal? What are the signals that you should look for? Obviously, it's not them saying, I want this to be a win-win. So what are the signals that you should look for that this is somebody that you would want to do business with and negotiate with?
Well, if you don't see eye to eye, how do they react? Are they rolling over you? Or do they want to actually hear what you have to say? Are they looking at you as a source of information? Because at some point in time in any deal, you're not going to see eye to eye. So what you really are is you want to gauge what that moment's going to look like. Is it going to be collaborative? And you can start to gauge that from the very beginning. Are they treating you as if someone who's to be used and abused? And there's a lot of that going on in private equity right now. Private equity in any company they're going to buy, they're going to say, all right, so is the CEO coachable? If he or she is, there's a pretty good chance there's a long-term play here. If they're coachable, we can actually help them with processes. And they'll be worth more money. So do they ask good questions? Do they listen? Do they take initiative? Are they coachable? Now, all right, so it's a highly valuable company. CEO is not coachable. Can we kick the management team out, take over, and make the value ourselves? Or do we buy it and strip the assets? And these are the three things that every private equity is looking for. Have you got good core processes, but bad management? All right, management's got to go. Good core processes, but maybe B-level management that's coachable. All right, we'll bring you guys in because you're committed. You got a few components that are more valuable than the company in its entirety. We're going to buy you and we're going to take you apart. So knowing that that's how the other side's looking at you in a deal, now you got to gauge, what do you want to do? What do they look like? And are they looking at me like a lion looking at a steak? Or are they looking at me as a suitor at a business gathering who's looking for a long-term relationship? And you're gonna get a feel for that very early on if you open yourself up to it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, you just mentioned it in the context of private equity and a business owner selling their business. But I would say that the same thought should be given to if you're raising money and you want to bring an angel on or a VC on or whether or not it's just a single person or a whole group. I mean, how are they going to operate after the deal's done? And you do want it to be quote unquote win-win. You want them to add value. You want them to understand when things don't go right and to help you out. You don't want them to start firing off your employees, or if they acquire you, laying off the whole staff. These are stresses for entrepreneurs and founders. But I don't think they know how to navigate that situation. I think because there's emotion and there's money tied up into it, and I think people make a lot of poor decisions because there's so many things that are clouding their judgment when they're trying to make that call.
Yeah, and so separating out your amygdala, your fear centers, or your hope centers from your gut instinct. And great entrepreneurs, great business people begin to learn to their gut instinct, which is overriding their hopes and fears early on. Because your gut instinct, ask your gut what's your gut telling you. Not what are you afraid is going to happen, what do you hope is going to happen. Those are the two things that cloud your judgment. If you hope something nice is going to happen, you got what we refer to as happy ears. You got happy ears. Hope is not a strategy, it's a drug that's hopium, which interferes in your ability to hear what the other side's really saying. Or if you're fear-based, oh my God. I get cheated like this one other time. I'm never going to let it happen again. Well, now that's clouding your judgment too. And so the challenge is, how do you listen to your gut? Look for yellow flags, not red flags. Look for stuff to make you go, I don't know what that means. Well, that's a yellow flag. And you start to accumulate the yellow flags and you find they add up pretty quickly.
You talk a lot and speak a lot about empathy in business. Define how you, I'm saying it the wrong way. I was going to say, define how you leverage empathy for business, but that's already insinuating that you're using it to a means to an end. What is the proper way to use empathy in business so that you get what you want, but you also don't get taken advantage of?
Yeah, okay. So let's define empathy first. Let's define it as simply assessment and the articulation of your assessment. Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is not agreement. Empathy is not compassion. A friend of mine, Stephen Kotler, read a number of books that are worth reading. The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire, two great of my favorites that Stephen wrote. And in one of his books, he said, empathy is about the transmission of information. Compassion is the reaction to that transmission. So empathy, truly understand where the other side's coming from, even if you don't like it, and then being able to articulate it from their perspective. What does that look like? You think I'm being unfair. You think I'm greedy. You think that I don't care about you at all. Those are empathy statements. I never agreed nor disagreed. I just pointed out what my gut instinct is telling me that you're thinking. And we teach tactical empathy as the articulation, the expression of what your gut is telling you about their perspective. If you take away agreement or disagreement, then you can be empathic with anyone. A member of Hamas can be empathetic with someone from Israel and vice versa, because it's not agreement or disagreement. So if somebody from Hamas can do it with somebody from Israel, that means you could do it too, if you define it that way. Now in business, it's a way of analyzing. So let me analyze what you're probably thinking. Let me feed it back to you. You're going to feel very connected to me. It's actually going to open up the channels. One of the phrases, which is the cliche about negotiation, is the biggest myth about communication is that it's taken place. Now people hear that and they say, oh, I just have to express myself better. No, the opposite is true. Listening hasn't been taken place. Hearing took place. I heard what you said, but did I analyze it? Did I think about what it meant? You know, the whole grade school thing, probably in 7th grade, you had a teacher that said, what's the difference between listening and hearing? I can still remember that. But the difference is, did you analyze what they said and discern its true meaning? Which means you're not agreeing with it, which now puts it in a business context. And then in certain predictable things based on fears. You're going to feel at some point in time I'm asking for too much. You're going to feel at some point in time I'm being disrespectful. You're going to feel at some point in time I got a hidden agenda because I won't get to the point. Me saying that begins to clear the air. And it puts me in a position to move forward with you.
2 thoughts on that. First thought, should you actually articulate that to the person that you're speaking to? And then second thought, how do you make sure that your own lens that you see the world through does not impact how you infer what they think? Because it's good to be empathetic, but you're going to have your own worldview that's going to impact. So yes, so should you articulate that and why? And then how do you stop your own lens from fogging it all up?
Yeah, first of all, you should. Like anytime your gut's telling you, you should. And there's aspects to it that when we're coaching in negotiations, we're going to ask you to lead with. Like in a first meeting, you can say to them, look, at some point in time, you're probably going to ask yourself whether or not you're wasting your time with me. Because they're probably 60 seconds into the meeting, they're thinking that. What this does is it deactivates and inoculates. Most people think it plants fears. It does. You can't plant a fear. You can plant it if you deny it. If I could say to you, like, look, I don't want you to think I'm being greedy. You're going to be like, oh, I got to cover my wallet. Here it comes. And I can say, look, it's probably going to seem greedy. And then when I lay out what I want, your reaction to that is going to be like, oh, well, actually, that was just honest. I appreciate you being honest with me. So those are examples of why you should go ahead and call it out. in the moment or even in advance. Now, does my lens interfere with me seeing it? Yes, that's why you want to lay out what you think the other side's seeing. Because for not just your lens, your angles on it leading up to this moment. So I frequently say, and coach people to say, look, before we go on, here's how I think you see things. Now I'm going to lay it out, and wherever my vision has been clouded, if I approach you with genuine curiosity, not judgment, I can't say, here's how I think you see things. My tone of voice is telling you negative things about my thought patterns towards you. But if instead I say, all right, so before we go any farther, here's how I think you see things. That's exploratory, collaborative. Whatever I'm missing, whatever I'm wrong on, you're going to want to correct me because the urge to correct is actually very satisfying and you're going to feel good about it. So that's how you keep your filter from getting in the way. Check it with the other side and invite correction.
One last question. When people deploy this tactic, and then I want to move on to a couple other ideas, but when people deploy this tactic, what would one thing be that they get wrong the majority of the time? What is one common misconception about deploying tactical empathy?
First of all, that your perspective is their perspective. Even if your perspective is accurate, they're going to have a different perspective. So, so common misconception is that you guys are on the same sheet of music or you see things the same way. Among other common misconceptions, that you got to go first and you got to lay out your position first. That's the mark of an average negotiator. So I need the information in your head, which is why I'm going to invite you to go first. And in 2 out of 3 negotiators, it's impossible for them to shut up. Shut up more. You're going to find that in those golden moments of silence, they're either going to bond with you or they're going to give you information. Both those things are good.
It's so funny. That's one thing that I remember when way back in a past life when I was in sales. And I can't remember who told me this, but the sentence was, whoever talks less wins. That was it. And so far, this is what I do for a living. I try and talk as little as possible and just let the guest. Now, it's not a negotiation. It's hopefully it's beneficial to both of us. But yes, when you shut up, good things happen.
When you shut up, good things happen. Amen.
Let's talk about people being deceitful, counterfeit yeses. I thought it was so interesting because when I was first putting, some of these talking points together, of course, I like to call them lies. I'm pretty sure that's what the rest of the world calls them. You don't like to call them lies. So this plays a big piece of negotiation, obviously. You have to figure out what's the truth and what's not. First of all, why do you not like calling lies lies?
Because of the emotional reaction to it. Lies / deception, the vast majority of it is defensive in nature. People are deceiving, people are lying because they're scared. Because they're afraid to tell you the truth. Now, that doesn't mean they're trying to victimize you. They're scared of the relationship. They're scared you're going to say no. They don't know how to tell you the truth. So the deception takes place on a massive level, but it's not predatory. Some of it is predatory, a small percentage. What's the percentage? Let me put it like this. There's a guess that the incidence of someone being a sociopath or a psychopath. I was trying to read the current differences in the definitions. A sociopath is somebody that intentionally prey upon you in the moment. A psychopath is somebody who plans on preying on you in a future moment. So it's a planning issue. 1 in 35. So that means 34 out of 35, if that number holds, When they deceive you, they're not trying to victimize you. 34 out of 35 lies, let's say, is this defensive. They don't know how to tell you the truth. They don't know how to fix it if they do. It's all fear-based, not necessarily the same as being a coward. Those are two different instances. But fear-based because they're trying to preserve the relationship, but they don't know how to get around it. So why am I going on this rant? Yes, it exists all the time. Stop yourself from being triggered on it. You're going to assume that they're lying to you because they're trying to victimize you. That's not the case 34 out of 35 times. So you encourage people to become straight shooters. And how do you do that? You deactivate their fears. How do you do that? You're saying, it's probably stuff you're holding back. You're scared if you tell me it's going to blow up the deal. I know you've got things that you're afraid to tell me because you think if I know them, I'll exploit you. Me even sharing that recognition is going to get you to start to loosen up. Now, my walk has to match my talk. And I'm very careful about that, but I'm also very concerned about if I say something that doesn't add up to you, you're going to instinctively react that I'm trying to hurt you. So I got to be careful about making sure those two things add up. I got to be careful about being vague. I got to, in fact, underpromise instead of overpromise. And then I got to talk with you about how we're going to fix things when we come to the inevitable glitches that life brings in no matter what happens.
So that's one way to get the person you're speaking with to feel more comfortable. Now, is there ways to detect whether or not they're giving you counterfeit yeses or lies regardless? Is there ways to figure that out? Say you've done all of that.
Right.
You still want to make sure, because sometimes somebody is not just going to open up. It's not 100% success rate that they're all of a sudden going to be like, yes, this is what's wrong. And you know what, we're being sued and, our revenues aren't what I'm saying they are and all this stuff that you want them to say. Say they still have these counterfeit yeses. How do you catch those?
Well, first of all, I'm leery of the word yes at all because people are afraid to say yes. There's misgivings with yes. Yes feels like a trap. For the person who says yes, there's always this fear of what am I letting myself in for that I don't know about. So in order to stay away from that, I stay away from the work. And so I'm going to start summarizing. I'm going to start inviting for your correction, inviting your clarity. And in those corrections, people correct with the truth. So you're much more likely to tell me the truth in a correction than as opposed to a straight question. Because me asking you a question is going to make you feel interrogated, which is also going to work against our relationship. So there are all these little points of friction in the communication process that we're actually taught we should do, but instead increase the friction. And one of them is asking questions. So I don't ask questions. I say things that invite your responses. A question is designed to elicit a response, to corner you, to extract information from you. Instead of extracting information, I'm inviting you to give it to me. It's going to change things completely.
A big thank you to Indeed for supporting Success Story, because hiring people is one of the hardest things you're ever going to have to do as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as somebody who's trying to build a business. It's important to hire well and find the right person, but it takes so much time and it's so labor intensive because, like most entrepreneurs, you have 1,000 things going on and there's a good chance that you just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. So how can you find that great, amazing, right fit candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because you don't have to waste time struggling to get your job posts seen on all these other job sites. If you're using Indeed, you can just use their sponsored jobs to help you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps right to the top of the page for relevant candidates, so you can reach out to exactly who you're looking for faster, and the results really speak for themselves. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. And you know what I love most about Indeed? It really just makes hiring so fast because everything is streamlined in one place. No more juggling juggling multiple platforms or waiting weeks for the right candidate? And how fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed, and listeners of Success Story will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions do apply. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary. A huge thank you to NetSuite for supporting today's episode. Now, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation up, inflation down. Honestly, at this point, you just need a crystal ball. But until we get one, over 41,000 businesses have found the next best thing. They future-proofed their businesses, their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, which is the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, your financial management, your inventory, your HR, all flowing together in one fluid platform. And here's what makes NetSuite different. It gives you one source of truth for your business. You get the visibility and control to make quick, confident decisions while others are guessing. You're working with real-time data, insights, forecasting. You're basically looking into the future of your business with actionable data, whether your company earns a couple million or even hundreds of millions. NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and helps you grab your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, they put together the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. This is the playbook for understanding how to use AI for your business. The guide is free. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. A shout out to NordVPN for supporting today's episode. I have to tell you a story. So I was actually in Toronto visiting family last month, and I went to binge some of my favorite Netflix shows. I forgot, and I realized that half of my US shows weren't available in Canada. Super annoying. Flipped on NordVPN. Within seconds, I got access to everything. Now, it's not just about watching shows. What makes NordVPN a game changer? Really just imagine having this personal security guard for your entire digital life. With just one click, you're connected to one of their 7,100 servers across 118 countries. I mainly use it for accessing streaming services when I travel, but I've also saved hundreds on flight bookings by checking prices from different countries. And their new Threat Protection Pro blocks all those endless pop-ups and suspicious links before they even get to me. And what I love most is how simple it is. One account, 10 devices, so laptop, phone, iPad, everything's covered. And the speed, honestly, it's so fast that I forget that I'm even using a VPN. And the best part, I've got a special offer just for Success Story listeners. So head over to nordvpn.com/success. And you'll not only get their best discount, but they'll throw in an extra 4 months on the 2-year plan. And don't worry about commitment because they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description. Trust me, it's worth checking out, especially if you travel or stream content regularly. That's nordvpn.com/success. When you detect that somebody has, again, fabricated truth, what would be your recommendation for somebody to preserve that relationship, or should they not?
Yeah, you shouldn't, in point of fact. I mean, you're going to gauge it to some degree because it's impossible to escape white lies. Now, how broad a definition of white lie is from the other side. The problem with human behavior is how you do something is how you do everything. So if they started to lie to you, even if you can get them to be straight with you and tell you the truth, they're lying. They're using that methodology to get by in other parts of the world, which is going to make it difficult for them to deliver. So there's always going to be delivery and implementation problems with people that are getting by with lies and exaggerations. It's gonna hit the skids at some point in time, no matter how good you can get information from them. So that's an indicator of problems to come. And those problems to come are very expensive. So in my early training of everybody that comes onto my team, they think that if you work for Chris Voss, the negotiation company, the Black Swan Group, the greatest negotiators in the world, then I'm going to expect you to make every deal. And my answer is no. Somebody who it takes a long time to get the deal, somebody who it takes a long time to get implementation, somebody that we have to double check everything they say. These are expensive people, and we're going to walk away from them. So when we catch you dealing with us like that, we're going to do take a number of approaches with you where we're just like, no, we're not doing that. We can't do that. I'm sorry. But we're very clear on what we won't do. And then actually, you're more likely to walk away from us because we're immovable.
One thing that you've spoken about a few times, and I just want to touch on it because I think it's interesting for the audience. I know that you think you did a whole podcast on it, but you've spoken about negotiating with narcissists. And I think it's a really, and that word gets thrown around a lot. And it's a very like topical, en vogue word. So for somebody listening to this, like, oh, great, he's going to teach me how to, deal with my husband or boyfriend. No, I think people throw the word around narcissist too often. So how do you know when you're negotiating with somebody who actually has some sort of definable mental trait who's out to get you versus somebody who's just difficult? And secondly, if you do find yourself in a negotiation or relationship with a narcissist, what are some tips to deal with that?
Yeah, so the more confusing they are, the more you feel guilty. Somebody's truly narcissistic, their whole goal is to destabilize you. And they're going to flip back and forth from being a victim to being a persecutor. Oh, you failed me. Oh, that answer was horrible. Life is really overwhelming for me. Or what you just said is not helping at all. I'm toggling back and forth from being a victim to being a persecutor. And I'm enjoying moving around from those two positions. There's this old thing called the drama triangle, which is held since I've been aware of it in the early 1990s. And somebody who's manipulating you is going to move back and forth from being a victim, a persecutor, or a rescuer. And they will never stay in one of those positions long, because as soon as you try to hone in on that position, they're going to jump to another one. I need your help. Oh, that was a stupid idea. Victim to persecutor. I need your help. No, you're not doing it right. Here's how I'm going to help you. Victim to rescuer. So just ask yourself, are they jumping back and forth between those three things? If they are, then they're narcissists. They're manipulating you. The manipulation is the objective of the communication. There is no other objective. Now, somebody who's just dysfunctional, make their behavior the path to the goal. Make your goal the path to their goal. And what's that look like? In a kidnapping, I'd say, how am I supposed to pay you if I don't know you're going to let the hostage go? They want the money. Oh, all right, let him go. Gets me where I want to go. Cool, I'm good with that. In a business deal, how are we supposed to continue this relationship if every time I talk to you, you ask me for something different? Oh, they're scatterbrained. You just told them they need to be focused. They need to remember what they did before. If they're a narcissist, then they're going to blame you for not listening. Now they are persecuting you.
No, I was going to say, I think it's important to identify the difference because, first of all, in a business context, I hear the word narcissist thrown around a lot in a relationship context as well. This is not a commentary on whether or not they are good to do business with. If they are dysfunctional, there is a very valid reason for you to exit that relationship regardless. However, I think that it is important to understand that if you can align objectives and the person is dysfunctional, there could still be an outcome depending on the severity of the condition versus somebody who has no interest in mutually beneficial outcomes and their only purpose on this earth is to make your life a living hell. Is there a way to negotiate with that actual narcissist, or is that a relationship you exit 100% of the time?
My advice is to exit it 100% of the time. Like it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal. It's also a sin to take a long time to get a bad deal. So if you're negotiating with a narcissist, either you're not going to get the deal or you're going to get a bad deal. Either way, you've committed a sin because your most valuable commodity at the end of the day is your time. And the narcissist is standing in the way of the people that want to be great partners to you. Now, this is very hard to feel because they can be so obscuring your view of reality and so obscuring your view of the coming opportunities that you don't see it. But we're seeing it over and over again play out on a regular basis. The narcissists are blocking the good people from getting to you. And so the sooner you exit from a narcissist, the sooner the other people who want to do business with you genuinely show up.
When you engage in a negotiation, let's say not a narcissist, but somebody who you do not have a past relationship with, just some very high level thoughts. What are the boundaries that you want to set? I mean, you're very famous for saying always start with no. You can mention that briefly if you want, but other sort of high level ideas that you want people to start to think about when they go into a relationship, go into a negotiation for the first time?
Well, I like to get a line on what somebody's core values are fairly quickly. So let's say hiring a plumber. I'm going to say, what do you love about what you do for a living? When you start asking somebody about what they love about something, you start finding out who they are really quickly. And it's a great opportunity for the two of you to have a meaningful small talk, if that's not a contradiction in terms. But I'm going to start teasing out from you what you love about what you do for a living, because it's going to tell me about who you are. And then I'm also going to say, what makes you want to talk to me? That's going to tell me a lot about how you view the possibilities for the future relationship. You start combining these things, you find in a very short period of time, brand new person. If you're listening, you don't have happy ears, but you're actually listening to what they said, they're going to tell you who they are pretty quickly.
One thing that I think could be a negative of technology, especially with AI, is that we leverage AI to do research, and we leverage AI to understand things, and we leverage AI because it's comfortable and it's easy. And then I've noticed it even myself with the podcast. I use AI to do research on the guests when before I would listen to their past podcasts and get like a really good idea of who they are. And I think that leveraging that AI, that makes us lazy, and it makes us not connect with the human in the best way possible. I'm really just curious, is there a place or a strategy for technology, AI in the negotiation process that doesn't remove the human component that obviously, you're alluding to the fact that it's so valuable to really get a baseline on somebody? Like, where does technology fit into it properly so it doesn't hurt you, it helps you?
With ChatGPT and the AI stuff, when it started really hitting the business community hard about a year and a half ago, maybe, and I was confused by it, and I sat through a panel, and one of the guys on the panel said, look at this as being a great intern that'll give you a good first pass at the information. So I'm like, oh, okay. There's going to be a lot of it that's going to be good, but it's going to lack some insight, but it's going to be a pretty good first draft assessment, first pass at the information. Then you can use it and realize then you got to go back and read it again, but it's not going to be all the way there, but it's going to get you more than halfway there. So if you look at it as a great assistant, a great intern, and then you got to go in with your insight and your wisdom and refine it, and then look for more or see something that makes you curious, and you've got to dig a little bit deeper into it. If you look at it in that capacity, then it's very helpful. If you think it's going to do the whole job for you, now, flip side, you got a draft that's anywhere from 15 to 25% flawed, just wrong. And those kind of errors will sink you if you don't find them. So it's how you put it in perspective.
Yeah, very, very smart. Okay. I want you to tell people where they can go to connect with you. Obviously, we have the event that's coming up. We'll put that in the show notes. So tell people where they can connect with you, just the socials, website, and also what else are you working on now that they should be interested about? Anything like that.
Well, blackswanltd.com is a website, BlackSwanLTD.com. Now, if you're serious about putting in the effort and the time to become a better negotiator, like if you want to wave the magic wand, if you want to sit in a jacuzzi and so, if you want to sit in a gym and get into condition without actually getting up out of the armchair, the Black Swan website is for if you want to get in a gym. We ain't going to do you any good if you just want to sit in a gym. You're going to have to get up on a treadmill. In the meantime, my Instagram, @the FBI Negotiator. We've been putting a lot of short videos up there recently. It really, in the last 7 or 8 months, is the first time I've been getting feedback from top-tier negotiators saying like, hey, I love what's on your Instagram these days. I'm checking it every day. The videos are helping me a lot. So that's those two references with context. There ain't no magic wand. Just like our top-tier clients don't miss a day with us. Not a day. And what they told me is like, once you get in the gym, you start missing days in the gym, you're not in as good a shape. You got to get in the gym. You got to do it. You got to put your days in. And then your results are phenomenal. That's when you get to the point where you're doing stuff that nobody else can do, which is a really cool place to be.
The last thing, we went into a lot. So anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't? Feel free. The floor is yours. Then I have one last question after that.
No, I like it a lot. Wherever you are in negotiations, if you actually want to get better, if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, we got products for you. We got tools. We got low cost and no cost stuff to get you started and get you going. If you're a private equity investor, and it's something that says, all right, so I'm as good as anybody in my class, but I think I could be better, then we got stuff for you too.
And by the way, I think it's not a skill that only works in one industry. It's not a skill that only works in one part of life. It's universally applicable. It's any situation you go into ever, it's a positive and benefit to you to understand how to negotiate, how to understand people, how to communicate. It's just, there's really nothing you do in life that doesn't benefit from learning how to do this.
That's right.
Last question I like to ask. So you've had an incredible career. You've gone through multiple seasons of your career. And out of all the wisdom, negotiation, business, otherwise, you want to leave one lesson with your kids. What would that lesson be? What was the most important lesson that you want to pass down?
Be collaborative, which is not the same as cooperative. Collaborative is where you're talking about working with someone to get what you both need instead of giving in. And then realize that nothing works all the time. There's going to be blow-ups. There's going to be mistakes. Things are going to go sideways. Pick something that works more than anything else does. And being genuinely collaborative will not make you invincible from all harm. It's just going to make your wins so much more in terms of percentages that the harm is simply going to be lessons that make you smarter versus things that destroy you.